family, Conversations in Education family. How are you all? Habari Gani, which means how are you? What's happening? And what's the good news? I am your host, Vincent Cheeks, and you are tuned in to Conversations in Education. We have another wonderful show for you today. But before we get started, I want to give you some Habari Gani, some good news. I would like to take this time to congratulate Miss Erin Jackson, who over the weekend became the first Black woman to win a medal, an Olympic medal in speed skating. So shout out to Miss Erin Jackson. And it was a gold medal, everyone. So she is the first melanated woman to win a gold medal or any medal in speed skating. So she's knocking down barriers and opening doors. So congratulations to Miss Erin Jackson. Outside of that, I have one other announcement to make. That announcement is that the Kaumba Storytellers of Georgia will be having their Black History Month presentation this Sunday, February 20th from 3 to 5 p.m. Again, the Kaumba Storytellers of Georgia are telling stories February 20th, 3 to 5 p.m. Some of the storytellers include my guest, Mr. John Doyle, Sister Olafemi, Brenda Griffin, who was my guest on the show last month, Miss Gwendolyn Napier, Miss Esther Culver, and myself, Mr. Vincent Cheeks. If you want to buy tickets, they are $10. Please go to kaumbastorytellers.org/portraits2022. Again, the website is kaumbastorytellers.org/portraits2022. It should be a fun time, a family fun time. You know, we're telling stories for everyone. And the theme for that show is the influence of African cuisine in the Americas. So if this as entertaining as the practice was this past Saturday, it will be a great show. So please go to the kaumbastorytellers.org website and purchase tickets. Thank you very much. And as I just mentioned, my guest today, he is one of the fabulous storytellers from that program. I'll give you a little bit of background about him. His name is Mr. John Edward Doyle. He is a storyteller, an actor, and a teaching artist. Not just a teacher, but a teaching artist. I like it. He is the founder of Arts Education Integration, LLC, a company that integrates creative arts into the educational setting. Originally from Burnsville, Minnesota, John moved to Atlanta to attend Morehouse College, excellent college. After receiving theater training from Carol Mitchell Leon, John began his professional acting storytelling teaching artist career in 1998. Mr. John Doyle, welcome to Conversations in Education.
Hey, thank you, man. You made that sound like when you put the 1998. I'm like, wow, that was last century, wasn't it?
Oh yes, it was.
Hey, thank you for having me, brother. I'm so glad to be here in your program.
Yes, sir. Having you again because you were one of the guests that closed us out in November before we went on holiday break. So I'd say you're a regular now.
Hey, we're family.
Yes, we are family. We got all kind of stuff going on. The tapes, WCEG. Yeah. And then we get to working with these youth together. That's going to be another one. So let's get into that, sir, and the work that you do in the community, the work that you do with these youth. I have to say I'm very impressed with your resume. I'm very impressed with some of the things that I've seen that you're doing with these children, man. So let's get into this. So my first question is, how did you develop your passion for education in the arts?
Man, you know, it's funny. Like, I don't know if you develop a passion or if you just have a passion, you know? Okay. So if I go way back, so I started working with like youth when I was like in college, right? I started doing like after school programs. I did, what's that? it's one of those national programs that they have. But anyway, so I started doing that. I started doing some school, and I found out like I really liked it, right?
Okay.
And then I started really wanting to get interested into acting, right? I always had like interest in it. Like growing up, I really didn't do arts growing up. I played football, so I guess I don't think I was a jock, but you know what I mean, I don't think I had the mentality, but I didn't really explore that artistic side until I got to college. And then I just found a way to just have this merger of still having that love working with youth. And I think part of that, I will say, I think part of that love working with youth came from my parents, because both of my parents, they're not necessarily educators, but they were very active in the community, very active just with empowering people. And, you know, from my upbringing, I don't know, I just felt a empathy, if you will, with our youth. And I would, especially youth that were, that didn't get all of the resources that other kids get.
Right.
And so I was like, I didn't think that was fair. So, I really started focusing, working in that population. And I also was able to just merge my love for arts, you know, and for me, it was within the storytelling, it's within the acting, it's with the writing, poetry, all that type of things. That was nurturing that creative side.
So was there just a curiosity about acting that got you into it, or was there a specific thing that you were involved in that got you?
Well, so I'll tell you, when I was in college, like most of us, we're all like exploring who we are, where we are, and why we are. You know? Right. And I read this book. I had this book. It was called Acting in Theater. Right. Okay. And there's a whole bunch of different essays by all these, by playwrights, by directors, by scene designers. And honestly, at the same time, I was going through, I was also exploring my spirituality. And I found this link with acting and spirituality. Okay. And yeah. And so I found there's something that was speaking to me on a spiritual level, but it's also speaking to me on a creative level. Okay. And I was just really about exploring that. It wasn't even about being on somebody's stage. It wasn't about being a star. For me, it was helping me to really open up to myself. Because with acting, when you're truly acting, you're not acting. Okay. You're being. You know, you're being. You're allowing you're allowing the words to come through you, and you become an expression of the words in a sense. So you're not acting it, but you're literally being it, you know. And I felt like that's what I was searching for at that point in my life, was like, who am I? I just felt like through this craft, I was able to explore that. Oddly enough, through acting, when you truly, because Denzel Washington says it best. He talks about, you know, he really didn't become really a great actor until he really knew who he was.
Ooh, now that's deep.
Yeah, so
that's deep. And just to piggyback off of that, and you said your acting and your spirituality kind of came together at the same time.
Yeah.
Can you explain a little bit how that worked? Because I have a little something I want to touch on that too.
Sure. So when I mean spirituality, there was nothing about any type of religious dogma or anything like that. But spirituality meaning coming into alignment with who I am. You know, a lot of times we, you know, when somebody asks, who are you? You know, you'll say your name. You use all these different labels. You know, you say your name. You might say, you know, the job that you do. But if you really get into the fundamental of who you are, it's much more deeper than that. You're much more deeper than just the job you work at. You're much more, there's something more deeper than because all that's transitory, all that changes, but who you are remains with you throughout your life. And so for me, it was that exploration of really just seeing what my core is,
right?
And through acting, you play all these different roles, but it's through these roles you start to find something that links all these different roles, and you start to find that link is you, and you really start to stop playing the role and start being it. And so for me, that's what I mean by spirituality. You get to the spirit of who I was really getting to, the spirit of who I am.
Okay.
So that goes beyond, like I said, any type of religion or anything like that, but just gets into the spirit of who I am.
Right. And you said this happened for you. You were in your early to mid 20s?
Yeah, I was a senior. So I was a senior and I was a marketing major.
Okay.
I started like really exploring this. And so that marketing stuff kind of went by the wayside, and I really started diving fully into this world, to the theater world, to the acting world.
Okay. And the thing I wanted to touch on, as far as you mentioning spirituality, it happened for me a little older in life, though. I was about 30, but I was searching for my purpose, like you mentioned earlier, and I was searching for the truth about this being or this entity called God, Creator, Universe, whatever you want to call it, that I had always heard about, but had never experienced. And I wanted the experience, you know what I mean? And so when I went in search of this experience, all of these hidden gifts and talents that I had that I never really knew I had started coming out. Now, I'll say this, I've always been a ham. You know what I mean? I've always been a ham. I've always enjoyed cutting up or attention from people. As my son's mother used to call me, I was an attention garden tool, if you can figure that out. But when I hit this peak of my spirituality and discovering who I was, I discovered that I could act. I discovered that I could host music shows, I could host TV shows, I could host an internet talk radio show called Conversations in Education. It opened up my heart and my patience, passion, and compassion that you mentioned for children, because up until that point, I didn't have a lot of patience for children.
Really?
Especially other people's children.
Did you have children? Did you have your son at that time, or was it?
He was very young. He was under 2 at the time. So that's why I say I have patience for other people's children, because that's another level of patience when you're dealing with other people's kids. You know what I mean? And so I just thought it was interesting that you had this intersection of spirituality and acting and finding out the things that you really wanted to do. Even though, we all have different spiritual experiences at different times in our lives. So, it happened for you in your early 20s. For me, I was close to 30, you know what I mean? But I just found that to be interesting, that once you make that spiritual connection, whatever that may look like, it just opens up all these other realms of possibility discovery. So I appreciate you mentioning that. So that's good stuff, man.
It's a worthwhile, I think it's worthwhile to live a life of self-discovery, to, discover. I mean, we're fascinated, like we live in a fascinating world. I was talking to somebody just the other day, like we literally are sitting on this globe, suspended in air, in this universe. You know what I'm saying? And we are a part of that. Yeah. Somehow we are connected with that. Somehow we are that. You know, all the elements that make up the universe. You got your carbon, your hydrogen. all the same elements that make up our own body. So it's, we are very fascinating.
Yeah.
If we take the time to really explore
And become
ourselves.
aware of that. Yeah, and become aware of that.
Yeah.
That's what it's about. And I like how you made that connection that we are part of this universe. We are connected to this universe. And I think that is another thing that opens up the doors of possibilities, the realms of possibility, once we are aware of that and understand that.
Right.
I like that. So what is the age range of the students that you work with?
So this morning I was with 3-year-olds.
Okay.
And then tomorrow I'll be with adults. So I go from 3 all the way. Now, when it comes to for students, it's 3 all the way through high school. And then I also have we get into that later, but I also do workshops for parents and teachers and all that. But I go from 3 up to up through high school, brother.
And that's pretty amazing to me, because in your bio you state that you started teaching in a daycare.
Yeah,
absolutely amazing to me, and I'll tell you why after you answer this question. But what was the experience like with you working in the daycare? 2, 3, 4-year-olds, man, that's wow.
Yeah. I worked with worked with 3-year-olds. It's 3B was our classroom. So you have 3A and 3B. And yeah, man, I loved it. I think anybody who works with youth, works with students, I think it should be a prerequisite that they start with the babies, because you see the foundation of how we learn.
Yeah.
And it doesn't really it gets enhanced, but the fundamentals of how we learn, of how we process information, how we take in information, you see the genesis of that at that age.
Right.
And man, I love it. I didn't know. It's funny, like I didn't really have any training. Like I had done work with youth, like at the summer programs and some of the some after school programs, but I never worked with no 3-year-olds,
Right.
But I found it to be an amazing experience.
Okay. And I have a question in the chat. It says, how do you make the transition for each grade level? Because it's different mindsets from pre-K, even just from pre-K to kindergarten. Then you got elementary, middle to high. Like, how do you make those transitions and make it work?
Oh yeah, yes. So whatever it is that, like today, I did it was a class on how, basically the lesson was about sharing, right? Okay. And how do we share? So you used to have to pare down, like when it comes to that age group, because all of them have different advantages and I won't say disadvantages, but they also have the constraints. So with 3-year-olds, of course, they're brand new to this world.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? They're like only been here few years. They're just now, some of them still got diapers, some of them, but I found that like with the kids, like you can activate their imagination,
okay,
and they'll go with you, and sometimes you have to pare down what it is that you're trying to convey. And maybe like one mistake I made when I first started getting into teaching is that I had so much that I wanted to give and to share. It was like, I'd have like my lesson plan would be all detailed and and somebody said, no, John, like, okay, I get it, but you want to leave a little space in there for spirit or for God, because you never know where it may go. And with youth, especially like the younger people, you may just need one objective. But yeah, so like when I'm working with, if I'm transitioning from like, the middle school to the high school, there's different maturity levels that they are. Like there's a drastic, I found kids like who in the 6th grade are very much different from the kids who are in the 7th grade. It's just one grade. but their maturity level,
yeah,
they exponentially grow. You know, so, and what I found like working with the high school age kids is that you have to make things really relatable.
Yes.
You know, to the environment and to see how things can apply. And also, but I think one thing that is consistent throughout, no matter working with 3-year-olds through high school, is that my part of my intentionality is to activate their imagination.
Okay, gotcha. And the reason to me that it's so amazing that you work with these 3-year-olds or these children that's pre-K is when I was teaching, and I was a first and second grade teacher in Bankhead.
Okay.
But one day, my second year when I was a full-time substitute, I had to substitute a kindergarten class, right? And I'm in this class, and I remember one of the first children I asked the question, I was like, I had these color shapes or whatever on the thing, and I asked the little boy, which one is red? And he couldn't tell me which one red was, right? Why? Because he didn't know. This was early at the beginning of the year of kindergarten. They really hadn't had a foundation for much of anything. And this little boy couldn't tell me what red was. He knew the shape, but he didn't know. And then I went into something with counting, and a lot of them didn't know how to count to 10. And I'm like, wait, it was just this blank slate of nothingness. I wasn't at all sure how to break that mold or lay that foundation, because up until then I had second graders before that, and a little bit of first, but they had that foundation poured, so all I had to do was build on top of it. So it's something special, and it's something different about having that blank slate and having to pour and lay that foundation from scratch that I just couldn't. It didn't work for me, and it was just like I need first, or really first through fifth, because I didn't like middle school because I felt they were too grown, and high school students, I fight at high school, so I knew that wouldn't work. So I wanted to stick with the young children because they haven't hit puberty, they are still in that following you blindly because they're looking up to you and willing to learn and ready to learn what you're willing to feed them. So I commend you. I salute you, brother, for working with the ones that young, man. You have so much respect for me just for that.
Well, hey, brother. Well, hey, just know it's mutual, man, because there are a lot of people like, man, I can't remember no first graders, no second graders.
Yeah.
And, and I would also say this too. I commend you as well, because being a Black man, working with that age group, you don't. So I would dare to say probably at the elementary school you worked at, there probably were not a lot of male teachers, I would think.
It was 4, and one of them was the PE teacher out of 45.
Right, right. And it's important for our kids to see us.
It is.
So yeah. I mean, yeah. And I was blessed, working at the daycare. I tell you, my first day that I worked there, I remember I walked out to the playground and I saw these kids started fighting, little kids. And one of the other male teachers came out, Mr. Wayne. And that's the first time I met Mr. Wayne. Mr. Wayne, so I've had 4 mentors in my life. Mr. Wayne was like my first mentor in my adult years. And Mr. Wayne, he taught me the power of storytelling.
Okay.
At the daycare. Because even though I had a love for these youth and wanted to I felt like I had something that I could impart on them, I didn't know how to do it. I didn't know how to keep them engaged. They were, the 3, so they'd be all over the place. And so I didn't have no class management skill,
Yeah.
But Mr. Wayne taught me how to engage them in, I would see them like this. I would be like this when I tell them stories.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? So, so I've been really blessed. Every step of the way, I've had different people, different mentors to really just show me, man.
Yeah. That's good, man. And like you just mentioned about you having mentors, there's a comment. It says most children do not have any or many positive male role models in their life. And that can be attributed to a lot of things. The circumstances you grew up in, bad choices, whatever, you know what I mean? But like you did mention, it is important for them to see Black males in these positions because representation matters, right?
Oh my God, yeah, bro.
It matters. And so I think it's important. Now, I'll tell you why I don't think there's a lot of male teachers in the profession after you answer this next question.
Sure.
So in your bio, it states that that the foundations for working with youth, you state the foundations for working with youth are passion, compassion, and patience. Please expound on those concepts and why they're important.
So for passion, like I said earlier, with like passion, I think you have to have a true love for youth. Like I know I've met teachers and other people who work with youth who are just really there to get a check.
Yes.
And kids respond off that.
Too many, yes.
You know what I mean? And kids respond not so much what you say, but how they feel from you, especially like the younger kids. Well, I actually think it's true from all the way, all the way through high school.
It is.
So that passion is like really the passion to like you really want to. Earlier on is really that I felt like I had something to share. Really, it's become like when I work with teachers, I talk about it's a to create a learning environment. We both there's an exchange of energy that's happening between the student and the teacher. And I'm learning the student is teaching me how to teach them.
Okay.
So I'm learning from them just as much, and I don't even say that like we use the word teach now but I like the word sharing.
Okay.
Because really the learning, because I think our job as teachers or facilitators is to give this information, to present the information, to give it in a way that makes it understandable, relatable, that is on their age level.
Yeah. And
then the work that they do to connect that happens inside the child. And so you help the child make those connections. Right. But that process that's when the child takes ownership of their own learning. So my part I look at is that I'm here to share this information, share it in the best way, give it in the best way that I can. Okay. The compassion is that, yeah, man, like I look at these youth, and I want to be able to give them what I feel like maybe things that I might have been missing, that I wish I would have given, like when I was growing up in school. I had two very great parents that gave me so much confidence and love inside the home too. Okay. And I found some of these students don't necessarily have that.
A lot of them, yeah.
So my job is to be loving, with these students, and being loving it comes in many different forms. It's not this gushy emotional thing. It's really you caring about that person,
Right. Exactly.
And what's the other one? I'm sorry. What's the other one? Oh, patience. Yeah. I don't know. Patience. I don't know. I think sometimes either you have it or you don't. Or maybe you develop it. I think I have even developed even more patience with the older kids as I've gotten more training, especially like training in brain development.
Right.
Like you start to understand, like, okay, that thing, that prefrontal cortex that deals with your reasoning, your thinking, all that is not fully developed yet. So when I work with teachers, and what I remind myself is that I'm talking to a developing brain. I'm not talking to an adult brain like such as yourself. Correct. I'm talking to a developing brain. And that doesn't mean that you give excuses for bad behavior. I think one of the main things that we have to do as not just as educators, but as people in our community, as the adults in the room, is to help our children be accountable for their actions.
Yes, absolutely.
You know,
and one thing you said I want to touch on that again I have to commend you for is you said you learn from your students as well, and just having that type of open mindset sets the stage for there to be a back and forth, a give and take between the two people or the people that's involved, right? And there are so many adults that think that they can't learn from children, or they think that children can't teach them anything, which is absolutely ridiculous. I had a conversation with my mom last week, and she was telling me how when she was growing up, that children didn't have rights. Period. Children didn't have rights. And I responded to her with, and that's what messes up so many children, because adults think they don't have rights, adults think they don't have a voice. So when things, potentially negative things, happen to these children, they feel like they don't have an outlet. They feel like they can't go talk to anyone because they're just going to be told, oh, you're just a child, go in your room. Children, when I remember growing up, children ought to be seen and not heard.
Right.
So detrimental and so damaging to children. And we really have to move away from what I feel to be a lot of this stuff stems from slavery. You know what I mean? And it's how we were treated by people that didn't care about us. And it's things that we picked up from these people from our treatment. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
It's spread down from generation to generation. And we call them generational curses now. You know what I mean? So just the fact that you have that type of open mind where you can say you can learn from a child, that is huge, bro. That is huge for teaching in and of itself. And it's huge. It's even bigger for that child, because that child sees that I am being listened to. I do have a voice. I do matter. And that's huge, especially for children, like, as you said, that are developing. Like, that could go a long way to instill just a little bit of confidence in
right.
You know? So that stuff is important. And I was going to say, when you were talking about passion, compassion, and patience, one of the reasons I feel there aren't a lot of male teachers is because of the compassion, nurturing component of teaching. You know what I mean? Like, as men, we're taught to not have emotions or repress our emotions, which stunts us from growing emotionally. And so I know when I first became a teacher, I was a father, I was a mother sometimes, I was a nurse, I was a counselor. Like, you have to wear all these many different hats that depend on a lot of compassion and nurturing. And if you weren't taught that, or you weren't shown that in your upbringing, it's gonna be very hard for you to have that. And just like you, I was raised in the house with my mom. She was a single mother of 3 children. But I tell you what, there was always food in the house. There was always love. I'll tell you that much. We did not lack in love in any way. And that, I know I got my compassion from my mother. And my mother was that mom in the neighborhood where, oh, that kid down the street ain't got no food. That's your friend. Tell him to come on over. You know what I mean? I got that from my mother, and she was a nurturer to the neighborhood. You know, she was that type of spirit, and so that's the type of energy and the type of spirit you need when you're going to be working with children, especially young children. So I wanted to, make sure I hit on those points. Men, if you're considering teaching, passion for children, a big heart for children, compassion, being able to empathize, understand situations that they're going through. You know what I mean? Coming from abusive home, not having food, not having electricity, so you can't take baths. All of these things, like you said earlier, when I was teaching, I'm learning all these things too, and I'm learning how the mind develops as it's growing. And I'm sure you know that if a child doesn't have a proper breakfast in the morning, it's already setting up their day for failure because they don't have the proper nourishment in their body for their mind to function properly for them to be able to comprehend what's going on. And then if they comprehend, if they're not comprehending and they're falling behind, now they're getting angry, they're shutting down, and then that's a behavior issue.
That's how the cycle begins, man. That's how the cycle begins.
So yeah, man. So I think and that's one thing as a society we have to do, especially the Black community, is stop stifling young boys' emotions.
That's so key. You know, you hit upon even about the whole slavery, You know, I'm actually doing a performance piece now where it's up in Roswell, right? Okay. And it's about this man. His name is Luke Monroe, and he was an enslaved man, right? And so you're doing research on this, and you think about how even these men were not able to be fathers to their children, to be husbands to the woman that they love. They didn't have any type of control. Right. What does that do to a person emotionally? You know, and then you can't really express that anger, you know. And there's a woman, Dr. Joy DeGruy, whose work, you heard the name? Yes, talks about the post-traumatic slave syndrome and how, you know, we are still experiencing some of those repressed feelings.
Yeah. It's passed through our DNA. It's passed through our DNA, bro. And I don't think a lot of is known about that and how much a lot of that negative trauma is passed down to us through generations, through DNA.
Right. And we don't talk about, you know, here's
don't talk about it.
Yeah. And real quick, like, you know, even talking about our slavery, the enslaved experience, I think a lot of people, a lot of us have felt ashamed of our ancestors in a sense.
Yeah. You
know, and man, we are because they survived, because they fought. I'm here.
Yes.
You're here.
Correct.
You know, so we need to embrace all of and we have nothing to be ashamed of. The folks who were doing the raping and the pillaging, those folks need to be ashamed of.
Yeah. That would require a conscience, but that's a whole nother story. Let's get back.
Don't get me started.
Yeah. We go off the rails on that all day. And I kind of want to move the interview along. I haven't got through a third of my questions, and we just have a great conversation, man. But we're talking about things that need to be talked about, and one of the things, this last point about slavery. People always like to point out the bad of what's going on in our community today, but they ignore what was the catalyst for all of our negative situations today. They ignore all of that stuff, the slavery, the Jim Crow, the lynchings, all of that stuff, man. So that's another show, bro. I'm gonna have to get you back. We got 20 minutes. I'm here for it. We have 20 minutes left. You're listening to WCEG Network. This is Conversations in Education. I am your host, Vincent Cheeks. I am on the line with a very active community individual. He's involved in teaching. He's involved in working with our youth. He's involved with the arts. His name is Mr. John Doyle. Mr. Doyle, you have an agency. Your agency is called the Arts Education Integration Agency. What exactly is that?
So I do performance. So it's multifaceted. I do performance programs in schools that's connected to the curriculum. I also do residency programs where I do arts integrated residency programs that's also connected with the curriculum. I also do teacher training. Focusing mainly on how to integrate arts within your classroom. Okay. And then I also have expanded, and I'm also doing child maltreatment workshops for parents, and I also do also brought somebody in to do domestic violence. We're working with an organization called Fathers Incorporated.
Okay.
And these are fathers. And so as a part of that work, we are able to impart, these things to these fathers that they, different life skills and different things dealing with how to deal with the emotions and also how to recognize. And when I deal with the child maltreatment, I don't just deal with the maltreatment of the abuse of the child, but what are some of the hidden abuses that we may have experienced growing up, and try to root that out, because we oftentimes we parent like how we were parented.
Yes. Yeah, that is true. And so why is it important to integrate arts into the classroom?
Well, so my philosophy, I look at teachers are artists. They're, you have your script. I always relate them to, like, because acting and storytelling is what is my main discipline. I would tell teachers your script is your lesson plan. You're in front of an audience every day, and your job is to engage that audience, and you have to be creative in doing that. And there are different ways you can there's different ways you can teach different subjects through different, in order to be able to, for each kid to be able to access it, you can be very creative in doing that. And that's basically what arts integration is about. You take a discipline of art form, and you use that to teach, you use that to connect with some of your core subjects, like STEM is really big. So I've been doing a lot of STEM related arts integrated residencies, using storytelling and acting. I do that. But you can really connect all your subjects in the school through art. And that's how our kids, and the thing is, our kids learn by being engaged.
Yeah, absolutely.
There's a saying that goes, you tell me a fact, I'll forget it, but you tell me a story, I will remember it.
Okay.
And so when you frame it in that way, because what is our goal with working with our students? Is it for them just to to perform well on a test, or for them to be learners?
Yeah.
Lifelong learners, you know what I mean? And so that's and also what arts integration does is that it uses your full brain.
Okay.
It engages the full brain, your left and the right.
Okay.
Your analytical and your creative, is employed when you're doing the arts.
Right. And so, and I agree with everything you just said about why the arts is important to be integrated into the classroom. My question for you is, if you know that and I know that, why have so many school districts cut arts programming from their curriculum?
Yeah. Why? Well, I think one of the reasons is that we have politicians who are not educators making laws. I was listening to radio, NPR or something like that, and they're just talking about these different laws that are come down the pike by these politicians who don't work in the classroom.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? And so a lot of them are the gatekeepers for what is important, what's not important. They're not on the front lines.
That's true.
I think that there is a general, it's not, I don't think, and one thing I can also say too, as far as being a teaching artist. So teaching artist that term has been around for about 30 years now. It's coined by a man named Eric Booth. And there's a whole contingency there's a whole network of teaching artists. In fact, next week, I and another teaching artist, we're holding, in fact, I'm gonna send you a link for that.
Okay.
But we're having a listening discussion with other teaching artists. Because I think part of it is that we have not talked enough about why we are important. I feel as though we are essential. We are essential workers.
Yeah.
You know, it's because I think it's, you know, yeah, and like I said, the first thing that gets cut a lot of times is the arts.
Yeah.
You know, and because I think we have people that are not there in the classroom, you know, making decisions, and we have not communicated enough of why we are important.
Okay. And to your point about people who are not in the classroom making the laws, I call that politics. Okay.
Oh yeah.
Because they, you know, they have all these different agendas and backroom deals and all of this stuff going on. And the teachers are sitting there raising their hand like, can I say something? Can I include something in this bill and this? Because I'm on the front line and I have a little bit of something to say and a little bit of knowledge that can probably help what we are trying to do at the collective, right? Like, because we are supposed to be working as a collective.
Right.
So, and so you mentioned earlier, you have a lot of training and certificates in many different areas, anger management, parent advocate, curriculum strategies for students and students in the criminal justice system, which I thought that was interesting, and inclusion strategies for children with autism and Asperger's syndrome. I think that's important also. Why is it important for you to be involved in so many different areas of education?
Because, you know, our kids are multifaceted. You never know when you walk into a room who you may encounter.
Okay.
You know what I mean? And so, yeah. So what these trainings have helped is that it's helped me to be aware of what a child may be dealing with and different strategies that I can use or different things that may trigger a child negatively.
Right.
You know, like for certain students who are on the spectrum, loud noises like can be really harmful to them, you know.
Yeah.
You know, I use a lot of music in what I do. So I've had to learn on how to modify what I do based upon what I've learned about certain, you know, so certain kids in our broader community.
Right.
You know, and kids are not cookie cutter, you know.
They are not cookie cutter. And again, I have so much respect for you from that in that regards, because, you know, children with autism, Asperger's, or even children in the criminal justice system, they're considered to be not as good or even possibly throwaways. You know what I mean? And the fact that not only are you taking the time to work with these children, but you're also taking classes on how to better yourself so that you can work better with them in their specific situation. And I think that's really important. And one of the things I have been trying to do was get involved with working with juveniles. And I think I told you before that that's an area that I haven't been able to get into that, you know, I would like to work with you in that space someday, because you can't forget the children. No matter what mistakes they make, you can't forget.
Yeah. I mean, now all these children have a story. I tell you, I did a, you know, one of the first experiences I had working with the youth within the juvenile system is that we created a play. Well, because what it was is that, you know, we hear all these things on the news, right, about our kids, but nobody is talking with our kids, right? Nobody's really hearing their story. So anyway, so I kept hearing their story. I was like, well, let's create a play. And they're like, yeah. I was like, okay, now there's a whole lot of steps we got to have to create a play. So, you know, by the end, you know, we had a room full of kids that said, yeah, by the end, we had about a good 10 to 15. But those 10 to 15 was powerful because they told this story. They all came together. I'm talking about, we had kids that were in different gangs.
Okay.
And but they came together to create so that they could tell their story. And then where they told their story was in front of, it was a appreciation banquet that we had. And that's when they, you know, presented their piece.
Right.
And this was in front of judges that would be on the other side of the bench, that'd be on the other side judging them. It was prosecutors. We had a couple of state representatives there, but it was an opportunity for these youth to be empowered to tell their story.
Right. And that's powerful in many respects, because again, you're giving them a voice that is being heard.
Right.
And two, you're giving them confidence and you're giving them hope. Yeah. And I'll tell you like this, one of my mentors, who doesn't know who's my mentor, Mr. John Hope Bryant, from Operation Hope, he had a saying that says, the most dangerous person in the world is a person with no hope. And so many of our students and our children, they lose hope at such an early age. And that's because some of us as adults are throwing them away. The community is throwing them away because they did this or they did that or they made a mistake. And I'm really starting to get choked up about this because there aren't enough people doing things about it. And I want to add a caveat to that. There are plenty of people working, you, me. I've met plenty of people during Conversation and Education that are working with our youth. But prior to Conversation and Education, me having this show, I would have thought that there's nobody out there trying to help our children on a genuine level. You know what I mean? And so you're out there, I'm out here. There are many people out here that are doing the work. And so again, I have to commend you. One of the questions just popped up. What are some of the solutions to this issue?
With solutions to, I want to make sure I'm clear, to the issue of
solutions to our children being thrown away and just not being heard.
Well, I'll say point blank, I don't know the solution. If I did, I think I would, I don't know. I'll try to get out there. But I do think that part of I think part of the solution is whenever you encounter our youth, and don't be afraid of them.
That's important.
Look, when you look into the eyes, like when I looked at some of these youth eyes, right? I'm talking about like, these kids 17, 18, you can still see that child in them. Yeah. You still see a person who's trying to figure things out, who's scared, who's put up a wall. And when you're aware of this mask that some of our youth put up, that's where that compassion comes in. That's where because right now we live in a society where we don't have like a rites of passage, where in the different African societies, different countries, there was actually a little rites of passage because, when you become 18, all right, you're a man or you're a woman or you're an adult. What does that mean?
Right.
And it's a very scary world out to people who don't feel like they are truly equipped to be successful adults out there.
Yeah.
So I think part of the solution is engage with our youth. And if you know of any organizations, make it be part of it. You know what I'm saying? Like, and also if a lot of it starts at home. If you have youth in your home, engage with them. Get them, you don't get them to talk. You don't get them to talk by asking questions. You get them to talk through conversation.
Yeah.
And you being vulnerable yourself. And I just have to share this real quick too, that I have a brother I work with, somebody who I really want you to talk with. His name is Officer Bruce Griggs, call him OG, Officer Griggs. But he has a saying, and he says, we have to get to our youth before they stop smiling in the yearbook picture.
Yeah, that's deep.
Yeah.
That's sweet.
So engage with our youth, and even after they stop smiling, know that there's a child that's still in there. That's a lot of it is fear.
Yeah. And to your end, I would like to say that you are a solution to the problem that we have with our youth. I am a solution to the problem that we have with our youth, because we are Black men who are on the front lines, even without certain training or what have you. We're out here working to get for the next generation. Because
Right.
one thing I realized about the work that I'm doing, people ask me why I go so hard at it. I say, anything I do right now within education or entertainment is not for me. I'm trying to build a better future for the generations that are going to come under me. Couple of things I want to point out in the chat. When you mentioned children wearing masks, commenter said the children learn to wear our masks. Children learn to wear masks from us adults.
It's all learned behavior, right?
From us adults, and that's
right.
very, very deep to me. Another thing, as far as
just to that point, and that's why I say it's important to be vulnerable, to take your mask down and deal with you. Yeah,
especially as men, because I know I wasn't taught to do that as a youth. Boy, stop crying. What is that? You're a man. You're a man. You ain't supposed to do what? I'm hurting and pain, and I'm like, okay.
These tears are real, mama.
As far as solutions, the comment that said parents should work with the school system instead of against the school system. That's huge. That is huge. We got a few minutes, and I want to get two more questions into you. Overall, through your work in education and in the arts, what is it that you want the youth to learn through your creative arts and teachings?
I think the main components for me is three components. Is for them to be critical thinkers, to be able to think critically.
Yes.
To be creative thinkers, because then you can be able to imagine a solution when you don't see one. Right.
Okay.
But be able to critically think, but be creative, and also to be empathetic people.
Yes.
So those are three components for me that drive my work, that I try to instill, no matter whether I'm working 3-year-old or 18-year-old, is to be critical thinkers, creative thinkers, and be empathetic people.
Critical thinkers, creative thinkers, and what was the last one?
Empathetic people.
Empathy is important, and not only in what we do, I think just in life in general. If many people could put themselves in other people's shoes and kind of have an idea of what they're going through, just an understanding, I think the world will be a lot better place. But we'd be also caught up in what we have going on, trying to fix our own stuff, that we get kind of lost in that. But we all need a shoulder to lean on. Go ahead.
I'm gonna share an activity that I do with students, but also teach with teachers. And I'm just going to share it with you and the audience. We have educators out there who work with youth, but it's called empathy storytelling. Okay. And so here's how it's set up. You give each person 1 minute or maybe 2 minutes to talk about something that was impactful to them, something that could be a time that they were most proud of themselves. You can find different prompts, right? Mm-hmm. But the goal is that they have 1 to 2 minutes just to keep talking. Right. Okay. And then they switch. And then the other person after you get done switching, hearing both stories, then after the person who was listening, you repeat that story that the person told you, but you speak it in first person. Okay. And it's very interesting when that happens. Okay. Because you literally you really are reliving somebody's experience, but you're reliving it as your own, and you start to feel even those same emotions. Okay. That's powerful. It's really powerful, especially in the classroom. Okay. I've done it. Yeah.
Gotcha. I like that. Look, man, this brother is intelligent. He's working hard in our community. Please go out and support his agency, Arts Education Integration Agency. You got any shows or upcoming ventures coming up you want to let people know about, and then also tell them how they can get in contact?
Yeah, next week I have it's crazy. Next week I have 6 shows.
Oh wow.
Yeah, I have I'm doing a show. I have an MLK piece I'm doing at a school. I have a show called SNCC, The Radical Leaders. So it's about SNCC and how they formed. Yeah,
okay.
Yeah. I have a show called The Atlanta History Through the Eyes of the Johnson Family, and we go through 70 years of what Atlanta has looked like through this one family.
Okay.
Then I got this other show called Growing Up that I'm doing next week. Yeah, all this is kind of crazy. I'm doing a show called Growing Up about this young brother who's growing up in Atlanta and dealing with the gangs, and I'm playing the father. And I mean, this other brother wrote that show. That and
any talent. I like
that. Man. So just getting it out there, man. So I'll be at so all next week I'll be at different schools.
Okay. Don't forget Sunday.
No, I'll be there. I'll be there.
John is involved in the historical Black portraits show coming up this Sunday. Please go to KaumbaStorytellers.org/portraits2022 to buy your $10 tickets. It would be an excellent show. John, you got any social media you want to share with the people? How they can?
I need to get better on that. I would say my website is the best way to reach out to me. And my Facebook is John Doyle, John Edward Doyle. But my website is, what's that?
What's the website?
It's www.aei.agency. AEI Arts Education Integration.agency. Yeah.
AEI.agency.
That's right.
You can go to his website. I went to his website and checked it out. Man, he has a lot of active things going on his website. Check him out. Book him. He's an excellent person to be working with your children, and he's a leader in the community, man. That's all I can say. Mr. Doyle, thank you for the work that you do without you. Thank you for coming on Conversation and Education and giving us your time and your insight. I appreciate you, brother. I look forward to working with you in the future, brother.
Brother, it's mutual, man. I'm honored to be here. And I was gonna say, I'm very blessed to be able to do my love. You know what I'm saying? So thank you for allowing me just to share and just have this conversation with you.
Yes, sir. And to the parents out there who's listening, please encourage your students to be critical thinkers, creative thinkers, and empathetic thinkers. Again, thank you, Mr. John Doyle. And with that, we're going to close out our show. Oh, but wait, I have to do my Scholar of the Week. Okay, today's Scholar of the Week goes to Miss Kenyari Sawyer. Miss Sawyer is a 17-year-old high school student from Albany, Georgia. That's my hometown, y'all. Albany, GA. We call it the Little A. Okay. Albany, Georgia. She has been accepted into 48 colleges and offered more than $600,000 in scholarships. Okay. 48 colleges, $600,000 in scholarships. She is a 4.0 student at Monroe Comprehensive High School. Ms. Sawyer is undecided on which school she will attend, but is considering Howard University, Spelman College, and the University of Georgia. FAMU. She plans to major in criminal justice, and she hopes to eventually become a defense attorney and start her own law firm. So congratulations. Shout out to Miss Kenyari Sawyer from Albany, Georgia.
All right, 48.
48, man. I was so impressed when I read that. So thank you all for tuning in to Conversations in Education today. Thank you for being a part of the WCEG Network. And again, to my guest, John Doyle, thank you again for being here today, brother. We'll be back next month with another fabulous program. Until then, peace, love, and community. Right.